what are some things you guys put in the forefront to attract customers, potential employees their way?
So every description has a minimum of 3 unique things about the business.
Candidates in these roles are looking for the most in today's landscape?
Well, obviously work from home. I'm not even going to get into it. We can talk about that.
All right. So here we're going to get started again. Welcome to the Ground Up podcast. Today we're excited to sit down and get to know a little bit more about Taylor. So just to give you a little background on Taylor, Taylor is the president of SearchWorks. SearchWorks is an executive recruiting firm where they specialize in helping small and large companies find their future executives. So first off, Taylor, thank you for jumping on the call. And I'm excited to get to know a little bit more about you and kind of what you guys do over there. How's your day going?
Yeah, I appreciate you very much for having me. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Well, if you can, I kind of gave a brief explanation of what SearchWorks is, but I'm sure you got a better explanation than I do. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do, what you specialize in, and kind of what you're known for.
Yeah, so SearchWorks is an executive recruiting firm. We do everything from director level and up. I tend to focus mostly in kind of blue-collar industries, I guess I would call them. A lot of manufacturing, distribution, and construction. I kind of grew up, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit, but I've been in the recruiting industry my entire career. And to talk a little bit more about the company, one of our specializations is packaging opportunities properly to make them as attractive as possible to the outside market. Our belief is that quality candidates exist. We have a lot of folks who complain that there's not quality candidates that are in the market, and it's just simply not true. Many times the fault comes from solely relying on the fact that an opportunity exists and the assumption that everybody should want to come work at your company, even though they know nothing about it. And so what we do is we specialize in packaging those opportunities in such a way that we put the most important information that candidates are interested in knowing at the forefront. So opposed to a job description that says, we are a packaging company and here's our role and the responsibilities and qualifications. That really doesn't tell me much other than the position exists. So what's a little bit about the culture? Is there upward mobility? Is there training? Are there great benefits? What are some of the things, or maybe a new business venture that you're focusing on or opening up into a new market? These are things that people want to know, but they don't typically get that information until they've already applied and are already on the phone with a recruiter or an internal person within the organization. And getting that person onto the phone, not so dissimilar to being in a sales role, is one of the most important things that you can do. So we try and make it as attractive as possible so that when you're a candidate and you've got 15 opportunities that all look the exact same between title and whatever else, this one gives you more information that makes it attractive and you actually want to throw your hat in the ring and actually have that conversation. Another thing we like to do is make video job descriptions, which we've been doing for about a decade. Don't see anybody else doing it, which is absolutely shocking to me. But the candidates get to see the hiring manager talk about the business, see the enthusiasm that they had for it, talk about the ideal candidate, the responsibilities of the role, but humanize it a little bit. And these people get to say, wow, I really get that. That sounds like me. That looks exciting. I'd like to learn more about that. And so there's this assumption that people are just going to apply, and there's too many opportunities out there. And so we need to give a little bit more information to get those people to apply. And that's really what I would say is our specialization on the front end. And then there's all the other great things that a lot of recruiting firms are going to talk about with getting to know your business and understanding your industry and getting to know the culture and providing assessments and all those things. We do all that, but we go beyond it by focusing on attracting candidates to the opportunity at the forefront.
So when you say packaging opportunities in there, so you're packaging like when you put job posts out there, for example, and so you're kind of finding a way to put this job post out here for this company that makes it seem like, obviously makes it more attractive for somebody to go into actually apply to and get on the phone with you versus just going on Indeed or whatever and looking through 1,000 different opportunities. Can you give an example of what you guys do what are some things you guys put in the forefront to attract customers or potential employees their way?
So every description has a minimum of 3 unique things about the business. So we focus on 3 uniques about the organization, and that's different depending on the hiring company. We also provide a minimum of 3 unique or interesting things about the particular position. So here at the very forefront, you get 6 things minimum that you would not get from a normal job description, in addition to seeing the hiring manager tell a little bit of a story, humanize the opportunity, get to actually see the person that you're going to be able to work for and work with. And so those examples are so all over the board depending on what the exact situation is, but we always try and give at least a minimum of 3 for each.
What do you find that candidates in these roles are looking for the most in today's landscape? Because I imagine that's probably changed drastically over the time that you've done this. What are they looking for mostly? Like, what's the big differentiators?
Well, obviously, work from home. I'm not even going to get into it. We talk about that ad nauseum over the last 4 years, so we're just going to kind of skip over that whole piece of it. But what we're finding is that in addition to just being excited about kind of the mission of the business and the direction that it's taking, most people, especially if they're in more of a middle management role, are interested about the upward mobility of the opportunity. One of the things that we've been specializing in more recently is succession planning. You know, there's going to be this, what was it called? A silver tsunami is what I recently heard it called. Of in the next 5 years, all of these baby boomers who are going to be retiring. And if you don't have a successor to that person, which is not the right way to go, you want to hire a VP under that C-suite or a director under that VP and have that person be qualified enough that you feel confident that over the next couple of years, by the time that individual retires, they're going to have the opportunity to take on that opportunity. And so that upward mobility, that ability to know where I'm going to go within this business is very, very important to a lot of people. I talk to candidates all the time that will say, you know, I'm in this job, but, you know, my boss is 55 and they love him. He ain't going anywhere for another decade, and I can't sit in the same role for another 10 years. So I need to get somewhere else where I have the ability to move up within the organization. And then new services, new products that they're entering into the market are always exciting. The ability for the opportunity or the business to be growing. So if there's some nice successes that they've had in expanding the business or looking at new divisions or acquiring other companies, those are all things people are always excited to be introduced and to work with an organization that's on the up and up.
So let me ask you this question, because I think this is probably an important question for both Matt and I. And we're both obviously entrepreneurs ourselves. Our business that we do together is really centered around the development of our people. So you just mentioned one of the things that candidates are looking for, which is succession plan, a development plan. In my professional career, I would guess, not like most others, is I've not seen a lot of great leaders in business. I've seen a lot of people who had really great titles and that were maybe individual performers, but I've not seen people that had an expertise of making the people around them better or lifting people up to be able to create that succession plan. Now, we've not necessarily been in the exact same realm, the same industry, but as that's something that candidates are really attracted to, do you find that there's a lot of companies and a lot of executives that have the ability to do that in today's landscape, or is that something that is wanted but not necessarily something that can be executed often?
Well, it's a little bit of a tricky question in that I don't know what level of professional maybe you're talking about when you're providing that example. Now, me working in more of the executive space, when I'm recruiting a C-suite professional, most of those people have proven to be successful within that space, and they wouldn't have gotten to where they are today without at least having a little bit of skill set within that realm. If you're looking at more of middle management folks, you're going to see less of it. And if you're looking at more entry-level people, then it's really going to be hard to find that because, you know, the wheat is separated from the chaff over time. And so depending on the years of experience that you see that these people have, you're going to see more or less of it. That's obviously something that is, and I'll kind of go back to my past statement about the silver tsunami. I think that a lot of these, you know, people who are in their 40s or maybe their 50s are going to be forced and promoted into more executive level opportunities. Those that have proven to be able to take on that level of responsibility are going to be promoted into that role, or they're going to be hired into that role from another business, and they're going to be forced to have to hone in on that skill set. So it really just depends on the level of professional that you're talking about.
So what I was thinking when I was asking that question was more that C-suite executive being able to develop internally their next C-suite executive within their organization. I see a lot of times that when you get to that C-suite executive, those guys aren't necessarily very skilled at developing the person who replaces them to help them elevate, but that's where those positions are typically hired in from an external place. That's kind of more what I was referring to, is the high-level executive being able to take that middle manager and show them, mentor them, coach them how to be that C-suite executive, so that when you have that silver class that you're talking about is going to exit, have they prepared that younger generation to elevate within their company instead of having to hire somebody outside of their company to eventually navigate in there. That's more what I was referring to.
Yeah, and I think the right person who's got that care and that DNA is going to go out of their way, and they're going to do that automatically. Sometimes I believe that the issue is derived from what are the metrics that we are putting upon these employees to measure their success. And many times it's, more revenue or better EBITDA or whatever the case may be. And if one of the metrics that you're pushing upon these people is not to develop those direct reports that they have, it may fall to the wayside, because people do gravitate towards what's expected of them. If they are held accountable for certain pieces within the business, then they will move towards that, and they will put in their best effort. But that comes from more of a cultural standpoint, I think, in most organizations. If your business has a culture of training and development and providing people with mentors that are inside the business, those things are going to be fostered. But I think it comes from the top, and the CEO or the board of directors or whatever it may be, and making that an actual critical piece of the business.
Now, do you guys handle the interviews and everything for your clients, or you guys just kind of put it out there for them to bring clients in their way?
So every candidate that we present will have gone through 2 interviews. The first interview is a phone interview, 30 minutes. It's kind of more of a technical, let's confirm that what we see on the resume is legit and that this person can speak eloquently and everything else. The second interview is going to be with the partner, with myself or another gentleman within my business. And that's kind of more of a leadership assessment, like what you were talking about, Matt, with being able to develop people and that culture fit. How is this person really communicating? How are they going to answer some more hard-hitting questions? And let's get into the real human being of who they are, as opposed to just what have you done, and prove to me that what it says on your resume is something that you've actually accomplished.
So what are some of the qualities you look for within the C-suite people that really stand out to you whenever you're looking to bring them over to the clients yourself? Like what's something that sticks out to you when you interview them? Excuse me.
Well, one of the key things that I'm always looking for is culture fit. That's kind of the main piece for me when I'm conducting my 1-hour Zoom interview with all these finalist candidates. An example that I give, which is just from recently, we recently filled a CFO position with a great organization, and we had a slew of strong candidates who on paper were all more than qualified. There was a gentleman that I interviewed who, spectacular. I would represent this person for almost any opportunity. However, he was a hard driving, tough leader. And he had really high expectations, which isn't bad, but he exemplified or expected those expectations in such a way that if they weren't met, he was going to be coming down on his people in such a way that wasn't going to fit with the actual culture of the organization. They're more conservative. They want to move a little bit slower. They want to make sure that their decisions are made. They want to ensure that they're training their people very, very well. And him in that environment would be like a bull in a china shop. He would rub people the wrong way. He could probably improve the metrics pretty dramatically. But if the culture fit isn't there, it doesn't matter how good the candidate is. The hiring team is going to find a way to get them out of that role for one reason or another.
Yeah, and how big are you seeing culture as part of these businesses right now? Because I know that's something you hear a lot in businesses now, is like the culture around what your organization is about. and how you build people up within it, and how you want people to actually want to work for you, versus, like you said, somebody who bulldozes people and has the expectations, which is great to have high expectations, but if you just tear down people and not build them up, as Matt was talking about, to build leadership and put people into a better role. I mean, how much are you seeing that now, and companies really focusing on that?
I think companies talk about it a lot. I think that they want to exemplify some of it's marketing, some of it's, you know, kind of positioning themselves as one of those organizations, but much fewer of them are actually putting it into action. Yeah. And one of the things that I talk about with candidates when they ask me about culture, which culture can be a difficult thing to define, especially for someone like myself that doesn't actually work in the business on a day-to-day basis. You take a little bit of what they say with a grain of salt, and you kind of make some of your own inferences based off of the questions that you ask and the answers that you're given by the leadership team that you're working with. And so there's really kind of two cultures, maybe even three, that exist with any person that's within a business. There's the overarching culture of the entire organization. There's the culture that their direct leader has, because some functions are operated differently that are a little bit inside or outside the main culture of the overall business, just because of the individual that's leading that piece. And then there's that, you know, functional culture that they have. So, you know, maybe as an organization has a culture of driving revenue. We want to grow. But in our finance department, their culture is to focus on costs. So we need to be really imaginative as to how we can grow revenue without adding a whole lot of cost, which then puts a culture on the marketing team and the sales team that's a little bit different. So you can have all these different pieces within one business, but when I talk to a candidate that asks about culture, I'll say, you know, here's the culture of the business as the way we see it and what we've been told about them. But what I can really tell you is that the individual that you're going to be reporting into, the person that you saw in the video, the person that I'm working with, this is how they are. And that's really the person that you're going to be working with. So, you know, you kind of talk about PTO or work from home or what have you. A business might have a, you know, 3 days on site, 2 days, you know, work from home type of environment. Yep. But if the hiring manager that I'm working with says, you know, I get that's, you know, our culture, but at the end of the day, if somebody's got to leave and go pick up their kid, I'm not going to stop them. Another leader might say, it's 3 days on site and you got to be here on site. So you got to know the individual as much as you do the overall business.
Yeah, you skipped over the work from home culture. I'm sure that obviously from COVID has been a huge boost in there. So in C-suite or executive level positions, are you seeing that still being common? I know a lot of entry level positions are looking for that too. Are you seeing that being common? And are you seeing the businesses make big adjustments towards that also?
The C-suite wants to be there. And most executives that I work with who were executives before COVID, they don't like the whole work from home thing. They're still not about it. And there's a higher expectation that you're going to be in the office, the higher in the hierarchy you move. So it's not as much of an issue. Even from somebody that's maybe moving from a director to a VP role will say, you know, I know this is a leadership position and I'm going to need to be on site more than I am today. You know, I kind of get that. So the expectations are a little bit different. But when you're looking at more of the manager level and below, it's still a big issue. People, you know, I think Google just said that they're going to have everybody come back. I know a recruiter over at Facebook who said as soon as they said that everyone's going to, maybe it was Tesla, I forget who it was, but they said whenever when that company made that announcement, we pounced on their people, and all of their people got a message from Facebook to say, hey, you interested in coming over here because our work from home looks like this. So there's still a war out there, but it's going more in the direction of a hybrid model than fully remote. So yeah, we're still seeing it, but in the C-suite, 4 days a week minimum, you got to be there.
So let's kind of change directions a little bit. And one of the things that, you know, we really love to hear from people like yours is kind of how you got to where you are. So you got a successful organization, you're the president of the company, you didn't start off there. So talk us a little bit, kind of where we like to start is two guys that are both raising multiple kids under the age of 5, which is who were you as a kid? And then that transition into your middle and high school days, where did you develop? So we'll start as a kid, 7, 8 years old. Who was Taylor Robinson?
actually a very quiet kid. I like to play with Kinects and Legos and watch movies. And when my parents would ask, hey, do you want to join the basketball team? I'd say no. I was kind of shy actually up until maybe about junior high days, and then I kind of broke out of my shell. And so nowadays I'm very out there. I love talking to people. It's one of the things that I enjoy the most. But as a young kid, I was very quiet. My mom will tell stories about how my sister would be running around the house screaming and going crazy, and I would just kind of be sitting in the corner like reading a book or something. Yeah. So started off and then kind of grew into myself a little bit. And then in high school, I really kind of broke out of my shell. I was Mr. Naperville North High School. I gave speeches and was on student government all 4 years. Was on the golf team, was very out there, really kind of ran around and was maybe in 3 or 4 different groups of friends and could kind of jump around from one to the next depending on what my kind of mood was that day. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about recruitment, most people don't even know that recruiters, or at least maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, that recruiting was even really a career. It's really gotten a lot larger as time has gone on. And so when I was growing up, nobody knew who a recruiter was. It was doctors, lawyers, all these different things, accountants, but recruiter, nobody had even heard of that really. Right. So my father has been in the recruitment industry for about 40 years, and he started a company called Kensington International with 3 other guys, grew it up very quickly, and so I would kind of be in the car with him and listening to him talk to clients or even interview candidates when he was driving the car, and I would listen in. I'd kind of be sitting on the stairs listening to his conversation, so I always knew what he did, and I always thought it was quite interesting, but it wasn't necessarily maybe something that I wanted to do. I was kind of lost. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So I always thought that I would get into some sort of a business development type of a role. I'm very interested in marketing. I talk quite a bit, unfortunately. I need to work on that and ask some more questions, I think, from time to time. But when I ended up graduating college from the University of Illinois, I got into a sales role. And my father didn't want me to join the business. He wanted me to get some outside experience, which I did. And then he called on me one day and said, hey, somebody left. I really need some help in this recruitment role. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah. So from about the time I was 23 years old, I started interviewing people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s for executive level roles. And I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't really know how to interview. My trick was to say, so I've got your resume sitting in front of me here, and I'm hoping you can just kind of walk me through it. Tell me a story. Go from the past and bring me towards the present. And I would just kind of let them talk. I would take tons and tons of notes, and then I got a little bit more comfortable with it. And the more I was able to hear these people talk and learn, the more confident and understanding I became in my ability to interview. Really, really took off. So then after a little bit of time doing that, which was a great role, great training ground, very, very difficult for someone at a young age, I ended up leaving the family business for 3 years because I started realizing that I work with my dad and a bunch of these older people, and I don't really have anyone around here. It just wasn't fun for me. I was still young. I wanted to live in the city, and I would come to the office, and it was kind of boring, for lack of a better term. So I left and went with a contingent staffing firm for 3 years, focused on information technology staffing, and it was a great job. I got to learn a lot, and that's kind of the other side of recruitment. And so it was really good for me to see that world and get a more holistic view of the entire industry. And then I had a massive brain injury, had to be in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and had 12 months of rehabilitation. Ended up leaving that job and coming back to the family business to kind of get myself, built up again. It was really kind of a 2-year ordeal in total. And then, so in 2019, I was working in kind of an operational role, really kind of doing everything. I was doing a little bit of selling, I was doing a little bit of recruiting, I was managing the team, I was focused on the marketing, I was kind of all over the place. And then 2020, I took over SearchWorks and have been running that business ever since. Father still works with me here and there. He's largely retired, has been working 2 or 3 days a week for the last several years. And actually, as of January 1st, he's going to be fully retired. So he's on his way out, but I've learned a great deal from him. Love everything that he's been able to show me, learn through just asking him questions, and frankly, just through osmosis of being near him and being able to watch him and how he interacts with people.
Real quick, and I know Matt's got a question, but is your dad actually going to be able to retire on January 1st? Like, I know his date is to retire, but is he going to meddle? Is he going to still involve himself, or is he going to just step away, close that laptop, and never look back? I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's funny because when he left his previous business 10, 12 years ago, he was supposed to kind of take it easy. Did not happen at all. And then 5 years ago, he was going to start retiring, and then 4 years and 3. I mean, he's been retiring for 7 years.
Yeah.
So he is an executive coach and an executive recruiter.
Okay.
And the coaching side of it requires a lot of time on his front. He's doing a lot of face-to-face and whatnot. And the recruitment side, he enjoys for different reasons. And frankly, I just kind of run the business, so he's not really, he can just kind of do what he does. So if the phone rings from someone that he's been working with and has a relationship with, and they say, I need this C-suite executive, Scott, you know my business, you know me, you know what we like, we'd love you to lead the search, then he's going to do it. So yeah, he'll still be hanging around a little bit.
I question that within myself. I mean, I want to be able to financially retire by the time I'm 60. So I've got a son that's 11 months old, and I've got a daughter who's 4 years. So when they leave the house at 18, that idea that they're going to leave the house at 18, when they do, I want to be able to know that I don't have to work. I don't ever envision myself wanting to retire, because I think when you find the right career and you find the right thing you do, it's really not work. It's a hobby that you end up getting paid for. And I think that I could say for both Matt and I, and probably sounds like yourself as well, and likely your father, when you find the thing that you're passionate about doing, then you never really feel like your work. My wife is trying to convince me to go on a vacation this weekend, and I'm going to go, but I'm going to be ready to get back as soon as we go. Just I don't need to take time off work because I don't feel like it's work. But
So take me back real quick. Your parents' parenting style, like Matt said, I have a 4-year-old, I have a almost 2-year-old, and I just had a 3-month-old. So I'm slammed. And so what interested me was when you said that your dad would talk on the phone and you would listen and be around there. I'm always on the phone. I'm always on meetings. I'm constantly on there. And so I sometimes I get a little guilty, but also if my kids can pick up anything that I'm doing and run with it, that'd be great. So if you could tell me a little bit about your parenting style, your parents' parenting style, to help you get to where you are now.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was incredibly loving. There was many years ago where we were out at dinner, and she was talking about Scott, my father, and how he loves this and he loves this, and he's got all these hobbies and things that he likes to do. And she said, I don't really have that. I don't have this thing that is mine that I love to do. And my sister and I looked at each other and we went like this. Like we are that. She's that type of mom. She lives for her children. I have a daughter who turns 1 year old in just a couple of weeks here, and my mom is always over. She lives in Tennessee, but she flies back all the time. Family is my mother's passion, and if you needed anything or what have you, she's right there. My father, similarly, talking about being on the phone, if I had a baseball game, t-ball, what have you, and he could be there, he was there. I'd be in the outfield kind of waiting for the ball, and I'd see my dad on the sideline, and then he'd have his phone and he'd be talking, but he'd be looking at me. Yeah. He'd be watching the game at the same time that he was on the phone. So kind of doing both, I think, is always a really important thing. And we did a lot of outdoor activities that were a little bit unconventional, maybe for somebody who grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. We had a farm where we would go hunting and ride dirt bikes and chop down trees and do all these kind of crazy things. And they were always willing to let me get hurt. Not helicopter parents, hey, if you're going to get hurt, you'll learn through getting hurt. So they would let me make mistakes. I would get reprimanded when I made those mistakes. When I got hurt, they would say, well, maybe you shouldn't do that last time, but they would still bandage me up and all these different things. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have the parents that I do. I love them very, very much.
That's exciting. Do you have and I know we don't ever have a plan because the plans don't mean anything when you have kids, but do you have a specific plan on how you plan to raise your daughter now, or what you guys have kind of worked together on? And again, it's going to get blown up in a year or two whenever things change. But again, do you have some kind of outlook on what you think your plan would be in the future?
Hopefully something similar to that. Giving my daughter the freedom to to make mistakes, still protecting her, but not putting up red tape and guardrails on what she can or cannot do. Literally at lunch an hour ago, I was talking to my wife about what they do together. My wife stays at home. And what they do for fun is my wife brings her to Jewel Osco and they get groceries. She brings her to Bloomingdale's to do returns, and she brings her here. She had to go get the gas whatever out of the car to figure out if it was producing too much gas, and took her to go and do that. And then there's other parents who they have scheduled things with their kid. What are we going to do today with the kid so that the kid has fun? Well, we're doing our normal life. This child entered our life, and we're continuing to live our life with the child as opposed to taking our life and revolving it around the kid. And I think that that's a really healthy way to go about it.
Yeah, I love it. And you have all these plans like Matt says, and then, you mentioned earlier, you said that you were a certain way at your age, and then your sister, raised from the same two parents in the same household, was a completely different person. And Matt's got a version of that yet. My son is still young enough for me not to know all of his personality, but my daughter has all the personality in the world for all of the kids out there. But yeah, to your point, she's, you think as a parent, you think you need to go out and buy this nice expensive toy and go do these nice expensive things. I could throw a empty water bottle on the floor, and my daughter will have fun with it for 4 hours. She doesn't care about all that stuff. Her favorite thing to do is to go to the grocery store with daddy. That's her favorite thing to do. So, I think sometimes as parents we overthink it and we overcomplicate it. And in reality, I think the thing you mentioned about your father is the most important thing for us to do is just be there. Just be there, be as present as possible, be as available as possible. And that's the key. So one other question I want to run to before we kind of do this last segment that we typically do. So Matt and I have been running a business together for the past 5, almost 6 months now, I guess. And it's gone really well. We're at the point where we're having an opportunity to expand. We are looking to bring in another business partner into our business, but what we need to find is somebody who is got a completely different area of expertise is what we do. So Matt comes in with a ton of experience being a wholesaler in the real estate world. I come in with more of a sales, leadership, process-driven background. We need somebody that has a whole different experience. But Matt and I have known each other. Matt used to work for me back in the day. We've known each other for many years. We know each other really well. We work really well with each other. What are the 2 or 3 things we, as a company, looking to bring in an executive to partner with? What are the things that you think a company like us or us in general should look for in identifying that potential person we're going to bring into our executive team and expand our executive team from 2 to 3? What are the things we should look for?
Whatever's not you is the short answer. So I'm a talker, I'm a communicator, I make decisions quickly and I stick with them and I move forward and I have ideas, and that's kind of who I am. One of the first people that I brought into my business was my friend Jordan, who I've known since high school, and he's the opposite. He's very analytical. He wants to take his time. He wants to do research. He wants to kind of fester things out and make sure that he has all the information before he goes and makes the decision. And I brought him on board because of that reason. Yeah. The perfect team of 4, let's call it, is going to be, if you're looking at the DISC assessment, you're going to have a D, an I, an S, and a C. You want everyone to be different. And unfortunately, as leaders, and especially as visionaries, we like people that are like us, and we want to hire ourselves, not even just visionaries, but everyone in general. And I think one of the best things that you can do for your business is hire maybe not the complete opposite of you, but somebody who's different. So, we're skipping all the technical aspects, but if there's somebody that is different than the 2 of you that can bring a different perspective and slow things down and speed things up or whatever the case may be, that's who you should hire.
Yeah, I think both of us have a good amount of visionary. Both of us are a good amount of visionaries, and an integrator, as what they call people. Like, I guess for your friend, it would be more of an integrator, and you're the visionary on your business there. We somebody to bring in to help really smooth the process out, and we like to go. Me and Matt like to just go with stuff. We're ready to make decisions and move forward, and somebody to sit down and say, all right, let's figure out the processes, get it down, and then let's actually work out the analytics of it instead of just going forward. So yeah, that makes complete sense.
So let me ask you this question: in assessing that, is it something that you would just suggest doing through resume review, interview, meetings, potential face-to-face conversations, or I've had scenarios where, I've been asked to do like personality tests and these different little kind of analytical assessments. And if you say, hey, looking for the D, I, S, and the C, you're like, is there maybe a test that you would say, hey, this is what I would suggest a company who's looking to expand? First, do the test on yourself to know what you are. You might think you're something, but maybe the test might give you a different perspective. And then through that, try to have people that do those similar tests that then cover your gaps? Or do you think it's just more of a feel thing?
I'd say it's an and. What we're talking about right now is a small team. And if you're talking about a small team, you're going to do this differently than if you have a 100-person team. So there's a little bit of a break here. And for you guys, with being a small team, I don't really like the disc for hiring people within a larger organization, but I do like the disc for hiring people in a smaller organization. And so, like I said, if you can get someone who's the polar opposite of you, it doesn't mean that you're going to bump heads and that you're not going to get along at all. Yeah. But you do want to find somebody who has a different personality type than you do. I also would never hire anybody without meeting them in person. It doesn't matter where they are. Go fly out there and go have dinner with this person. Maybe give them a couple cocktails, see what they're like when they've got some liquid courage in their, in their backbone and whatnot. So, it's personality over anything else. And it's an and more than an or.
It's interesting because Matt and I, we've known each other for 5 years. We've never met each other in person. And I've got so many people because of COVID that I've done business with intimately over the past 5 years that I would call good and some best friends that I've never met in person. And we've got to accumulate, that's the word. What's the word? We've got acclimated to working in that way. But I did just last week, I was telling Matt about this. I had a client that I'm potentially doing a consulting gig for, and they're two older guys and they're brothers. And I was meeting with them Friday at like 4:00. And they were like, okay, we like the way the direction's going. We want you to come to our house to have dinner with us at our house. And I live in Dallas. They live in Monterey, California. We're like, you come to family dinner on Sunday night. So, okay. I got on a flight Sunday morning, flew out there, drove from San Jose to Monterey, came in, and what they did is it wasn't just like me and those two guys. They actually they're a car dealership group. They have over 20 stores. They had every single one of their general managers come eat dinner at their house where they served everybody. But to the point is the value of having me not just meet them in person and get to know me in person, but get to know the rest of their team and have me sit down for 3 days. I spent 3 days with their whole leadership team, just getting to know their team before we ever even had a conversation about closing the deal. It's something I would never do, but it's something that as I did it on the receiving side, it's something I see how valuable it could be. So that's a great point that you made there. Matt,
and you understand that group better now. And if you've got a fork in the road of we can go this way with it or this way with it, you're going to know immediately this group is going to want to go this way with it. You're going to know that now.
It's so important. A lot of value. I got to see they got to see the real version of me, right? Which is, what they wanted. But I think more than they wanted to see the right version of me, they wanted me to see the truest version of them. Because they're a unique organization. They are an organization that is Christian-led. They're an organization that's not afraid to talk about political things and speak their political mind, which I've gotten so acclimated to not wanting to or able to talk about those polarizing ideas in business because people can feel so strongly. But because they feel so strongly about their beliefs, they want to make sure people are comfortable with how they work their business. And it was an amazing meeting because I got to see they're really a family first organization and really believed in that and got to show you that they're not just talk, but they are action behind the talk. And to your point, yes, I've got to be very comfortable with the decision to potentially work with them after that meeting. So it's great. Matt, any other questions before we go into our lightning round here?
No, we're going to jump right into it. All right, Taylor, give me the top 3 mistakes you see companies make when trying to recruit a C-level.
The top 3 mistakes. The top 3 mistakes, I'd say number 1 are putting too much emphasis on the resume and the technical capabilities as opposed to the human that actually represents that background. Moving too slowly throughout the interview process and having too many people be a part of that interview process. And 3, not going with their gut.
In 3 words, describe yourself as a leader.
Confident, understanding, flexible.
Perfect. So this one is supposed to be what inspired you to start your business, but obviously with this, you joined your business, your family. What inspired you to stay working with your family? That's a hard question for me to answer because I don't know if I could work with my dad every single day. I love my dad to death, don't get me wrong, but working with him is a different story. So working with your family, what inspired you to stay with them?
Well, first off, my father and I have an incredible relationship. He stood up in my wedding. He's one of my best friends. And from a professional perspective, we have never had a big run-in. So it's been very, very easy to make that transition. And I've been given a lot of leeway over the course of my tenure and our interacting with one another and a lot of freedom. So the ease of it, the fun of it, and frankly, just how interesting this business is to me is what has really kept me excited.
Let me ask you this question. And this is a little bit away from the business side, but what's your number one hobby right now? So if you've got a couple of days, works on the side, your family's out of town, what are you doing?
I'm golfing, and I'm hanging out with a buddy and having a couple beers.
So are you playing golf with your buddies and having a couple beers? That's kind of like an ideal Saturday in a sense, maybe?
Being out on the golf course with my best friends is my favorite thing to do, undoubtedly. You said your family's out of town, so you took that one away from me. I would have said that. I would have said that, but golfing with my best friends is undoubtedly my happy place.
So follow-up question to that, what's the best course you've ever played golf at? Your favorite round?
Ooh, best course I've ever played at. There's a course in kind of the Michiana area that I've played almost every year for the past decade called Lost Dunes, and it's probably one of my favorite courses.
Now, is your favorite course because you did really well at that, or is your favorite course just because you like it in general? Because I think I think those go hand in hand.
A couple of reasons. The greens are very undulated, so every green is very, very different. It makes that part of it difficult. The sand in that part of the country is kind of or not the sand. The soil is kind of like mixed with sand, so it's very soft. You can really take a divot very easily, and the ball lands very softly on the green. And lastly, I go out there with a group of other business owners and leaders, and we have a great time every time we're there. So there's just the fun that I have.
We got to get into that. We got to get invited next time. We got to get invited to get out there. Buddies of mine, we go do an annual golf trip. This last year we went to Arizona, and I don't know if they've come to the conclusion of where we're going next year, but I know we're scoping out the next year's golf trip. So, I'm excited to see where that goes.
It's exciting. Let's see. What is the biggest challenge you face in your business today?
Biggest challenge I face in my business today. I'm having to expand my business, and without selling a widget or a SaaS or something of the sort, my business gets done by human beings putting in work. So there's hours that need to be done, and the role of gaining the trust to the point where an executive is going to give you a retained executive search takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of capability. And so hiring folks that can acquire that trust from executives and speak to them at their level and consult with them about candidates and what's the best potential for their business, hiring those people is quite difficult.
Yeah, so my question was going to be what area of your business do you find currently the easiest part of your business to manage? Like, what do you gravitate to? Where is the strength inside of your business? I mean, as the president, you oversee it all, right? What part of it is probably the part that you don't manage as well, and maybe have somebody within your company that you can just trust is going to handle that because you know it's a clear weakness? Talk me through that.
I've spent the last almost 2 years developing what I'm kind of calling our marketing machine. In fact, our most recent newsletter that went out had a 51% open rate and a close to 30% click rate across 19,000 recipients.
Wow.
So what we're doing a great job right now is gaining warm leads from our marketing campaigns using LinkedIn, social media. I've got very strong marketing brain, I would say, and we've been building a really, really great some marketing content that provides value. We're not asking for anything in return, but everything that's revolved around recruitment and hiring. And this most recent one was about how Illinois is passing a law that requires any business with more than 15 people to post their benefits and the salary range on all job posting. That gets enacted on January 1st next year. Very, very interesting for people to see. There's about 10 states that are already doing it, and some of the best practices for that. So just giving away free, useful information is something that we're very, very good at. And I would say Kika, who is my operations executive, she handles everything else. I handle the client-facing things and some of the ideation, but in regards to running the business, she does that, and she's incredible at it.
Matt has a Kika that he depends on within his business too. I don't yet have a Kika. I'm not important enough to have one, but yeah, one day we'll get there.
So the question as, obviously as fathers and people who have families, how do you manage running a business and keeping your personal life, obviously, with your family at the same time?
I make time for my family. It's an absolute priority for me. And if I don't have something that absolutely needs to get done, and it's the end of the day, and I've only got an hour and a half left before she's got to go to bed, I take my time and I go see my daughter. I work from home. I'm in my home office right now. And when I need a 10 or 15 minute break, I go spend time with my daughter. On the weekends, I spend time with them. We go on walks. I make it a priority, flat out.
What would you say is your leadership style, Taylor?
Kind of similar to the other question about the 3 words. I would say my leadership style is supportive. I like to believe that I'm very supportive of my people. It's taken me a little while to learn that reprimanding is not the right way to go, but understanding why didn't that happen or what's been going on with you and getting an understanding of what's happening in that person's day-to-day and the reasoning that they weren't able to handle it or weren't able to make time for it or what have you, and being able to work with them to fix that problem, I think is one of the things that I've really been able to develop over the last 5 years, and something that's a massive strength for me.
Awesome. And can you give us 3 tips for a business to define their culture? 3
tips to define
or build their culture.
I think that the defining the purpose of your business is very important. I think that that's kind of foundation, if you will, and not making your purpose so that it's a marketable purpose so that you can say this is really what we believe in. But if your real purpose is to make money and to grow it and sell it, that's fine. That's okay. That is your purpose, and people can get behind that, and they can drive behind that, and they can understand that. So being honest about what your purpose is. For culture, that kind of drives everything, to be honest with you. I would say how accountable and understanding you're going to be to your people is also a very important thing. So if somebody doesn't get something done, what is the reaction to that? And what type of a business are we going to have to get people to do the type of things that we want them to do? Are we more of a carrot? Are we more of a stick? Are we somewhere in the middle? And being, again, very honest about that. And I guess the third one, because I keep saying it, is just honesty. If you have a culture of people that are honest with one another, you're probably going to be successful. But hiding things, not arguing when it's time to argue and not showing their differences in thought is not going to make you successful. So honesty and allowing others to be honest is incredibly important.
So what I didn't hear you say is a pizza party on Tuesday.
No,
right.
That doesn't matter.
I've heard a lot of companies that I've been with that, they get free food on pizza on Tuesdays, and that's the culture right there.
Yeah. All right. Final 2 questions, and we end every one of these up with these 2 questions. I think these are probably the 2 most important questions. Number 1 is, what are your 1, 5, and 20-year goals with your company?
My 1-year goal is to hire at least 2 more additional people to the team that I trust, that fit in with our culture, and then can help push the business forward. I need to grow the business. That's my 1-year goal. Was it 5? Was the 5 the other one?
Yeah, 1, 5, and then 20.
I'm gonna keep monetary stuff out of it. 5-year goal is to quadruple the business. I'd like to quadruple the business. And our 10-year goal is to make, I think it's 200, and I forget the exact number, but we want to have placed a candidate with a client every single working day of the entire calendar year. So 10 years from now, 5 days a week, we want to place one candidate every single day throughout the entirety of the year.
That's awesome. We interviewed somebody, I think about a week ago, who his goal in 20 years was to replace the college system for the United States. So, hey,
Wow.
Your goal is very, very attainable in comparison to that one. I don't know. I think you can do it. All right, last question, Matt. You want to ask it?
Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be the people that I care about, that are closest to me, think of me with a positive outlook. When they think of me, they smile. When they think of me, they remember the positive lessons that I gave to them. And I want my legacy to be that I brought so much positivity and thoughtfulness to the world that those around me also bring positivity and thoughtfulness to the world, and that just betters the planet, or at least, the Chicagoland area.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to see you do that and accomplish that goal, and good luck on that, man. Good luck with everything else. And, I could tell you we absolutely appreciated the conversation today, and yeah, thank you for giving us the time.
I had a great time. I appreciate it as well, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Taylor.